Smoke rips through the air and can be heard from kilometers away.
22 vehicles carrying fuel and other supplies for NATO forces were destroyed.
Capital, Kabul was the last major city to fall down to the offensive that began months ago, but to only accelerate as the hardline Islamists gained control of the territories. The group entered direct talks with the US back in 2018 and in February 2020. The two sides struck a peace deal that committed to the US withdrawal and the Taliban preventing attacks on the US forces. Other promises include not allowing Al-Qaeda or any militants to operate in the areas that it controlled and proceedings with national peace talks. But in the year that followed, the Taliban continued to target on the Afghan security forces and civilians, advancing rapidly across the country. The Taliban, or students in the Pashto language, first emerged in the early 1990s in the northern Pakistan following the withdrawal of Soviet troops from Afghanistan. It is believed that predominantly Pashtun movement first appeared in the religious seminaries funded by Saudi Arabia, which preached a hardline from Sunni Islam. The promise made by Taliban in Pashtun areas in Pakistan and Afghanistan was to restore peace, security, and enforce their own version of Sharia or the Islamic law once in power. So now let's go through the Bakra organization's leadership structure, aka Taliban's leadership structure. So now the leader, aka the head Bakra, Haibatullah Akhundzada, he is the former Taliban Chief Justice leader since 2016, ultimate authority on political and religious and military affairs. Now going down from this Bakra, there are three idiots, aka known as deputies. Now these three Bakras, let's get started with the first Bakra. He is the political deputy. Now he is the co-founder of Taliban, head of the political office in Doha. You could say he's the most important man in the whole Taliban and the whole Afghanistan, because let's say his power is like way up on Haibatullah Akhundzada. These people kind of have a rivalry going on between them. And now there's the second deputy. He's the son of the Taliban's founder. He's very shy, doesn't like to show his face, a very shy kid who likes to torture people. And now he's the military operational commander. Now going on to the next deputy, he's the head of the militant group known as the Tikwani Network. Now going down, there are commissions. They're basically like Taliban's cabinet of ministers. They oversee activities in different areas like military, intelligence, political, economic, and 13 others. By I mean political, the political office in Doha, the Taliban's international representation, it deals with peace negotiations and anything which basically has to do with international. And going on, there are two other Bakras. They're kind of like the side Bakras. So now this guy is the senior judge. He oversees the Taliban's judiciary structure, which is basically invisible, and leads the negotiation team in Doha. You know, the negotiations which always fail. And the other thing is the leadership council. It's basically the unwanted auntie who always comes to your house and gives you advice which you don't need. So it's basically the Taliban's high advisory and decision making authority with 23 Bakras. That's a lot of Bakras. From southwestern Afghanistan, the Taliban quickly extended their influence. In September 1995, they captured the province of Herat, bordering Iran. And exactly 1 year later, they captured the Afghan capital, Kabul, overthrowing the regime of President Burhanuddin Rabbani, one of the founding fathers of the Afghan Mujahideen that resisted in the Soviet occupation. By 1998, the Taliban were in control of 90% of Afghanistan. Afghans, weary of Mujahideen's excesses and infighting after the Soviets were driven out, generally welcomed the Taliban when they first appeared on the scene. Their early popularity was largely due to their success in stamping out corruption, curbing lawlessness, and making the roads and the areas under their control safe to flourish. But however, the Taliban also introduced or supported the punishments in line with their strict interpretation of the Sharia law, such as public executions of convicted adulterers and murderers, and amputation for those who were found guilty of theft. Men were required or forced to grow beards, and women had to wear an all covering burqa. The Taliban also banned television, music, and cinema, and disapproved of girls aged 10 and over going to school. I mean, just look at some of the Taliban's rules yourself. Just looking at them makes us furious. Just imagine what the people in Afghanistan had to go through. They were also accused of various human rights and cultural abuses. One notorious example was in 2001 when the Taliban went ahead with the destruction of the famous Buddha in the central Afghanistan, despite the international outrage. Pakistan has repeatedly denied that it was the architect of Taliban and company. But there is a little doubt that many Afghans who internally joined the movement were educated in madrasas. If you don't know what madrasas means, they're religious schools. And those madrasas were in Pakistan. Pakistan was also one of the only three countries, along with Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, which recognized the Taliban when they were in power in Afghanistan. It was also the last country to break diplomatic ties with the group. At one point, the Taliban threatened to destabilize Pakistan from the areas they controlled in the northwest. One of the most high-profile and internationally condemned of all Pakistani Taliban attacks took place in October 2012, when a schoolgirl Malala was shot on her way home in the town of Mingora simply because the Pakistani Taliban didn't believe in a girl's education. A major military offensive 2 years later, following the Peshawar school massacre, greatly reduced the group's influence in Pakistan, though at least three figures in the Pakistani Taliban have been killed in the US drone strikes in 2013, including the group's leader Hakimullah. Attention of the world was drawn to Taliban in Afghanistan in the wake of 11 September 2001 World Trade Center attacks in New York. The Taliban were accused of providing a sanctuary for prime suspects Osama bin Laden and his Al-Qaeda movement. On October 7, 2001, a US-led military coalition launched attacks in Afghanistan. By the first week of December, the Taliban regime has collapsed. The group's then leader, Mullah Muhammad Omar, and the senior figures, including bin Laden, evaded capture despite one of the most largest manhunts in the world. Many senior Taliban leaders reportedly took refuge in the Pakistani city of Quetta, from where they guided the Taliban, but the existence of what was doubted the Quetta Surah was denied by Islamabad. In August 2015, the Taliban admitted that they have cover-up for Mullah Omar's death, reportedly the health problems at a hospital in Pakistan. For more than 2 years, the following month, the group said it would put aside weeks of infighting and railed around a new leader in form of Mullah Musur, who had been the deputy of Mullah Omar. Around the same time, the Taliban seized control of a provisional capital for the first time since their defeat in 2001, taking control of the strategically important city. Mullah Masur was killed in a US drone strike in May 2016 and replaced by his deputy, Hibatullah Akhundzada, who remains in control of the group. In the following year, the US Taliban peace deal of February 2020, which was the culmination of a long spell of direct talks, the Taliban appeared to shift their tactics from complex attacks in cities and on military outposts to a wave of targeted Asians and and terrorized Afghan civilians. The targets, journalists, judges, peace activists, women in power, suggested that the Taliban had not changed their extremist ideology, only their strategy. Despite grave concerns from Afghan officials over the government's vulnerability to Taliban without international support, the new US President Joe Biden announced in April 2021 that they call American forces to leave the country by 11 September, 2 decades to the day since the felling of the World Trade Center. Having outlasted a superpower throughout 2 decades of war, the Taliban began seizing vast swaths of territories before once again toppling a government in Kabul in the wake of a foreign power withdrawing. They swept across Afghanistan in just 10 days, taking their first provisional capital on 6th August. By 15th August, they were at the gates of Kabul. Their lightning advance promoted tens of thousands of people to flee their homes, many arriving in Afghanistan's capital, others for neighboring countries. The Taliban's return to rule begins to end an almost 20 year of US led coalition presence in the country.